So let me ask you this, Chris. So what's the most valuable negotiation technique or strategy that you've ever learned, and why is it so valuable? Because you know a lot of them.
One of the simplest ones. All right, let's go with simplest. Mirroring, repeating the last three words of what someone just said.
The last three words?
Yeah, the last three words. Just repeat the "nice job, Dean. I know what you're doing to me." I know what you're doing.
How dare you just fell for it right away without even.
How dare you? How dare you put me on me? Nice. If you can master that skill, because a lot of times you just need some time to think. Everybody says, boy, now that I'm thinking about it, I know what I wish I would have said. And now that I'm thinking about it, now I see what I missed. That mirror technique, the last three words, buys you that time in the moment without the other side realizing that's what you're doing. Because they're going to go on, they're going to talk some more. They're going to add a lot in. One of the crazy things about the mirror technique is it's a preferred move of the people that possess both a high IQ and a high EQ. Now, I cannot explain why that is the case. I can speculate on it. I think if they are high in both areas, they love the simplicity of it and the lack of effort, and they're data-loving people, so they love how little they have to do to get a bunch of information out of the other side. But that's probably the single most valuable thing that you could learn, simply.
Very good. Very good. Well, so we've talked about this one before, but it's always so important because you've helped so many people just with this one. So why is the word no more important than yes? And if you could give an example.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So the key to negotiation, it's not about you. We hear this all the time, but you hear no, and you go like, oh my God, oh my God, I hate no. I hate being told no. I think we get that conditioned. Every child on earth, regardless of their language, what's the first word they learn? No. Because they get told no, and they get pointed at them, and no, don't do that. No. So we get it beat into or hardwired into us. So when we hear it, something horrible has just happened. But the flip side, the person who's saying it feels protected and safe. And they calm down and they relax. They feel like they just protected themselves. The other thing too is you can say no when you're tired and then immediately contribute to the conversation and think things through really quickly. So it's completely different. If it's about them, people love to say no. They feel, and they're gonna say a bunch more afterwards. Mm-hmm. I got a couple no stories that I love, but I'll tell one of my favorites, Robert Herjavec. We're negotiating with Robert Herjavec's crew over how many tickets they're going to buy for one of our training events. I've already offered him one. His response for free. His response to the one for free was, how many can we buy? Not how many more free ones can we get? I'm a huge Robert Herjavec fan based on my interaction with him. I find him to be a generous, decent human being. So we're going back and forth, and the event is getting ready to sell out. And my son, Brandon, who runs my company, he calls me on the phone late in the day. I'm in LA. He says, you get Herjavec to commit to how many tickets they're going to buy now, or they're going to be sold out by the time the sun rises in New York tomorrow, because my son's on East Coast time. We're getting ready to sell the event out. And Brandon says, and if he doesn't buy any, I'm selling a ticket that we're supposed to be giving him for free. So I'm like, all right, I got to cut this deal. Now it's 5 o'clock in LA. When was the last time you tried to get a hard decision out of somebody at 5 o'clock? At 5:03, and also an email. At 5:03, I sent a 2-line email to Robert Herjavec. Is it a ridiculous idea for you to commit to buying 3 tickets now? Second line, are you against paying for them before the business day starts in New York tomorrow? Again, we're 3 hours behind New York. The time stamp on his email response is 5:04, 1 minute later. Mm-hmm. No, we'll commit to the 3 tickets right now. No, it's not a problem. We'll pay for them right away. Send me a link. We'll pay for them right now within the hour. I send them the link. We got the money at 5:23. Get people to say no. You'd be shocked at the responses you get.
It's fantastic.
That's
So
awesome.
there's some questions that people have, but what I'm going to ask everyone, save your questions. When we open it up for Q&A, I might ask you to repost them because it's sometimes hard for me to track everything and be present here too. So, so Chris, how might an entrepreneur use these strategies and techniques that you teach to better understand and serve their clients?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, in simply understanding them better will help you serve them. You know, all right, so let's say you're the favorite. And let's say that they're elf, they're not half. They want you to dial into them. You know, you want to be open to a better deal, which is you tailoring your services to them so that it better serves them and it's more lucrative for you. Because first of all, I'm going to presume that everybody on this call believes the same thing that I do, that you over deliver. So first of all, if you're over delivering, you were a bargain of whatever you were charging anyway. Which means if you tailor your service, your good of service, so that it's a better delivery for them, you're worth even more. Yes, you want to get what you do. No, don't be greedy. Don't grab with both hands. But when you provide a service that's worth it, you are entitled to be paid. So the more that you listen to them and understand them, and I'm here to tell you, there are ways that you can tailor whatever you're providing that would be easier for you to provide it, which means it would be more profitable for you and it would be better for them. So be willing to engage in conversations and be open to that. And then, you know, the other crazy thing is there might be something really counterintuitive that'll make it profitable for you in unexpected ways. And one of my favorites is, you know, our mutual friend, Dan Sullivan. And he's talking about his book deal. He's talking about listening to me, never split the difference. And we pay people.
Sorry, I pushed the wrong button.
We pay people what they ask. You know, I don't pound people on price. So Dan turns around and gives every dime of the book proceeds to Dan and Tucker.
Ben and
Tucker. Sorry, Ben and Tucker. And then Ben and Tucker says, Dan got the last drop of my blood. When you're not greedy on the price term, what the other side gives you back might be worth 10 times what the dollars were worth. And those guys, I think Ben and Tucker would die for Dan.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's see, the beauty of Dan too is, and I think it's one of the reasons, I mean, heck, me and Dan have done podcasts on this, is we like reciprocal people. You know, we like people that are generous. We like people that are useful. And it's just so much easier to that's what an ELF person is. People keep asking, what does ELF mean? ELF is easy, lucrative, and fun. And half is hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. It's actually a term I got over 20 years ago from my friend Mark Schneider, who unfortunately passed away earlier this year. But I heard him say ELF years ago, and I said, I'm going to develop that into something, because I started thinking of all the different business methodologies you can use in terms of marketing and the stuff that me and Dean Jackson teach on I Love Marketing. It's ELF marketing. It's automated. It's robotic. But then I started thinking, how do you can filter everything through an ELF filter? What are people? What are projects? What are things that you're doing? Are they easy, lucrative, and fun, or are they hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating? Sometimes people can be hard, annoying, lucrative, and frustrating. Not all money's created equal. So ELF is a really great filter, and I'm super happy, Chris, that you're referring to that, because I think it just offers some framing. So yeah, I mean, this is once you become skilled at utilizing what Chris is teaching and what he's talking about here, you will find a lot of things in your life that were difficult become more elf. And that's the whole goal, is to bring elf to people in all areas of their entrepreneurial endeavors.
So I'm gonna jump in real quick because there's one more tangent I want to go on to on half and elf. Okay. Before you fire your half clients, and we just shifted into this recently. We got a couple of deals that were proposed to us, and they were half deals. Before we walked away, and I had this conversation with my son, Brandon, and everybody else in our company when it came up. I said, what's the counter offer that would make this an elf deal? Before we walk, maybe they don't know that this is half. Maybe they don't understand it. And there's a pretty good chance of the chances are that they're going to offer you a half deal because they don't know any better. They can't help themselves. There's a whole bunch of reasons. I said, let's counter with what would make this an elf relationship. At that point, there's no doubt in anybody's mind what we're looking for. And they have the option to take it or leave it. And we have the option to take it or leave it. And we turned a couple of deals around with that by simply countering. Instead of saying goodbye so long, we said, all right, here's what would work for us. Here's what would make us want to do business with you forever and make us want 10 years from now, look back on the last 10 years and say, that was cool. Mm-hmm. And we threw it out there. And the batting average is actually pretty high on that. We don't counter offer their offer term by term. We construct what would be great for us and how we would love to do business with them before we walk. And you'd be surprised at how many people will embrace that because they just didn't know any better.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there.
Do you ever have situations, Chris, where you look outside of the scope of what will be the immediate terms that are on the negotiation to draw in other things that might tip things some way or be an influence? I was just thinking about that, how,
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I'm glad you brought that up. We're trying for that all the time. And, how do you know what you don't know? Mm-hmm. What we'll do is we'll start to say, let's brainstorm this a little bit. Like, here's some ideas that people have gotten in the past. Mm-hmm. We start throwing out wacky stuff that people brought up. And that will kick their brain into gear. So yeah, try to kick them into a collaborative brainstorming process to look for how to get outside the scope. But I mean, I love that question because that's absolutely what everybody should be doing.
What are the biggest mistakes that, let's start with that we make with negotiating? Because we're all doing it. I mean, how would you even define negotiating?
Communicating to accomplish results. In real broad terms. Information gathering is part of it. Mm-hmm. Herb Cohen wrote a book a long time ago called You Can Negotiate Anything. And he defined negotiation as a use of power and information in a web of tension. Mm-hmm. Now, a web of tension would be emotions. And the only tweak I think that we made on our definition is we don't just use information, we gather it and use it. Because if you're saying the use of information, you're assuming you're coming to the table and you should have gathered all the information before you come to the table. The table's the best place to gather information. Okay. And a lot of people will hold themselves back from going to the table because you want to be prepared. You don't want to be caught off guard. About a third of you in the room are horrified at getting caught off guard at the table. And that's holding you back.
Yeah. So in terms of the mistakes, do people, like, what are some common ones that are easy to fix? Like, you have a whole way of start with about no as an example. I love the way that you most people want to get a yes. Maybe we can talk about how yes could possibly not be the first thing you want to hear out of someone's mouth. Because everyone here is like, wanting to sell stuff, and you got a lot of the world's greatest marketers, and they're, and I've had the conversation with Dan Sullivan that, no's are great, yeses are great, maybes are what kill you. If someone says no, you at least know where they stand, and you can either, it's done, or you can, now knowing what that's actually a starting point. But maybes, where someone's like, oh, I'll call you back or whatever. And so I'd love to have you talk about just the languaging and what to pursue and how to actually start the whole process of getting to, something favorable and the result that you want.
Yeah, sure. All right, so yes is a useless word. There is no more useless word. And the majority of you probably yes addicts. And recognizing that is one thing. Getting out of it is even harder, because you're hardwired. If you're hardwired to hear yes, breaking out of that dynamic is really, really hard. But it could be one of the biggest issues. And if you're hardwired for yes, of course you're horrified at no. But in any important negotiation, I don't bother with yes at all. Give you an example. We ran a training in New York a few months back, and I had recently run across Robert Herjavec. Wonderful guy. I mean, generous on the strength of just an introduction. I'm from one person. I'm sitting down with this guy and for lunch for 90 minutes. And he's talking to me for 90 minutes, and he's buying. I mean, what else do you want, right? So through the course of the conversation, I tell him we got this training going on, and I offer him, give you a free ticket. And he says, how many can I buy? Like, wow, even better. What an even more gracious guy. He loves so much we're talking about it, he's willing to pay too. So we're going back and forth on the tickets, how many he's going to buy, and the window's closing. It's going to slam shut, and he's not going to get in. And my people are bugging me. They're mad at me because I'm giving away tickets for free that we'd be selling otherwise. So I'm in a doghouse already anyway. So I'm in Los Angeles. My team is in New York, East Coast. We're 3-hour handicap in LA. And they're screaming at me. And he hasn't pulled the trigger on the tickets. So I sent him an email. Are you against committing for 3 tickets now? Are you against paying for those tickets before the start of business tomorrow? Because we're going to be 3 hours behind the clock. If they wait till tomorrow morning, they're going to be gone. And then I'm going to be embarrassed. I get an email back in less than 30 minutes. We'll commit to 3 now, we'll pay for them. And they paid for them within the hour. After 5 o'clock in Los Angeles. So every time it's really, we don't bother with yes. You can flip any kind of question, any kind of commitment question from a yes to a no, and you'd be shocked at what people will say no to. I mean, friggin' shocked. And yes is commitment, yes is hesitation, yes is concern. That's why people are really good at the false yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about the false yes, with versus that's right versus you're right. Yeah. This is a really good distinction and real, something I never knew or realized until.
That's what Tim was talking to me about that one time when we met.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I should say that too. When I first met Chris, it was a couple years ago, and Tim Larkin, who many of you know, has been in Genius Network for, I've known Tim for 20 years, and Tim actually is. He's been on the cover of Black Belt magazine. He's trained, lots of, Navy SEALs, MMA fighters, everyday people, men and women. And he, his book, "This Science of Violence," is that title of his book? And he has this great.
Violence
is the answer. Yeah. And I've interviewed him on it. You think I would know this stuff? And when, and Tim he's a badass and he's a great guy. And he said that violence is never an option unless it's the only option. What do you do in a situation where someone is going to hurt or kill you? And when Brian Kurtz actually organized a dinner and invited Chris to it, and Tim, I sat next to Chris and Tim was there, and it was a small group. There's maybe 10 of us or something. And Tim said, he's like, I don't mean to be total fanboy, but I love your book. And Tim said this is the best book on negotiation he's ever read. And so right from the get-go, I was like, wow, this is an important guy. And so, so there's lots of little things that most people would have no idea about, but you identify those and you teach people how to actually use them. So let's talk about the false yeses and what you really want to accomplish to know that you are successfully, I guess, negotiating.
Right. All right. So, and the thing that Tim talked about to me about that one time too, somebody tells you you're right. What are they telling you?
They're right.
No, they're telling you to shut up and go away. I want to maintain a relationship with you. I still like you, either because I want to or I have to, but it's designed to preserve the relationship, but please stop talking and please go away. And we might like you're right more than we like yes, because we think we have to make a case. You think you got to make a case. You think to negotiate, you got to make an argument, you got to make a compelling case. You got to give your value proposition to the other person. And you think you scored when they look at you and they go, you're right. And what happens is you get real happy and you shut up. And you probably walk out of the office. You probably walk away. Or you think you made the point with your significant other or whoever it may be. And Tim sits down next to me and he goes like, you saved me so much money because he was on a rant with his senior team and he'd read the book and he's trying to get everybody on the same sheet of music. This is the direction we're going. And he says, one of his executives said, Tim, you're right. And he said, holy cow, if I'm so far off track with my guys that they're trying to politely get me to shut up, I need to stop the meeting right now. I need to back up. I need to find out where I'm off track. And then I need to go to everybody and get myself corrected, which it kind of blew me away that he was that enlightened about it. And that's what he did. He stopped the meeting. He went back. He talked to everybody, found out where he was wrong. Because if people are telling you, look, shut up, you're probably off track. A 2 millimeter difference is, use a Tony Robbins phrase, right? I love the 2 millimeter difference. You want to get people to say that's right. Because that's right's what you say when you hear the complete and total truth. You agree 1,000%. No matter which side of the political aisle you're on, the last presidential election, the last presidential debate, whichever candidate that you loved, when they said something that you loved, you didn't look at the TV and go, you're right. You looked at the TV and you said, that's right. And that's right what people, when they say when they're all in. And what they just heard is a complete truth. Now, the invisible fairy dust magic to that is they feel incredibly bonded to you in that moment. They don't know that. That's the other thing that's really powerful about it. I had somebody once tell me that's somebody saying to you that they feel empathy from you. And that's so powerful. For example, the greatest practitioners of this in the world are actually sociopaths. They're also vulnerable to it, interestingly enough. The idea that sociopaths can't feel it or use empathy, they do feel it and they do use it. But if you were willing to accept this premise, this outlandish idea that sociopaths are good at empathy, you should ask yourself why. Why is because it's quick and it's sustainable and they're lazy. And it's a way that they maintain really solid relationships with very little maintenance from them. So empathy saves time. You put less time into relationships to keep them strong once you've established the empathy bridge, and you've established it when somebody looks at you and says, that's right. What I really was an international negotiation coach. I coached negotiations in every culture on the planet. And they weren't asking for ransom for the American, they were asking for war damages for 500 years of oppression. From the Spanish to Japanese to the Americans, violations under blackjack, Pershing, all this sort of nonsense. This is another story that you should be tuning out right now because you were never in an argument with someone where they were bringing up stuff from the past that didn't matter anymore. Where are you? So we tried all sorts of logic, all sorts of in and out, tried to be clever. I thought I knew terrorism. I thought I knew Islam, and I thought I knew all this stuff. And finally, one day we just said, we're going to get a that's right out of the guy on the other side, the sociopath. And make no mistake, a raping serial killer. Chopped lots of heads off personally, was proud of it, and no shortage of rapes to his credit. And I coached my guy to get on the phone, and you just make their case. It's the Stephen Covey advice. Instead of seek first to understand, then be understood, demonstrate understanding. You got to make their case, not your case. but you just recognize it. Don't agree with it. But lay it out the way they see it. Lay out everything that this sociopathic terrorist has been laying out of all the nonsense of why $10 million is a bargain basement price for 500 years of war damages. And he laid it out, and he laid it out, and he laid it out, and he laid it out. I said, and if you're not laying it on thick, you're not laying it on thick enough. And my guy finished it, and there was a short silence on the other end of the line, and the terrorist said, "That's right." And we said, okay, let's talk again in a couple of days. And the $10 million ransom demand went away. They never brought it up again, ever. It went away. It was gone. It was completely gone. A couple of months later, the American walks away. We had done a number of things. We'd gotten them disorganized. We completely disorganized them. They didn't know we did it to them through our communication techniques. American walks away. A couple of months later, military picks them up, flies them out. We take them back to the U.S. I'm back in the Philippines about 3 weeks after this on another case, and the guy that I coach says, "You're not going to believe who called me on the phone." And I'm like, I don't know. Who called you on the phone? The terrorist. Guy's name was Sabaya. Sabaya still knew his undercover name, still had his undercover phone number, was smart enough to know that he had to either be with the police or the military, but didn't know and didn't care. Called him on the phone and said, "Have you been promoted yet? I have no idea what you said to me on the phone. You're really good at it. They should promote you." And also think about what he's saying, because would he deal with him again? What was he really saying when he made that call? "I respect you. I'd deal with you again." So it's an example.
With all the raping. We know.
Who would imagine that you can get to somebody like that?
One thing that I have really focused on for a long time is the mindset of 10 times. And so I believe, for a number of reasons, 10 times is a very useful thought today simply because of the capabilities that are in the world around us. And Peter gave a very, very good background to why it's so possible now for us to think in terms of 10 times. And it's because of all the exponential capabilities that are now being created in the world around us. So this wasn't true. I was born in 44, so I just celebrated my 70th birthday in May. And I have to tell you, I mean, Richard and I have conversations because Richard is, checked around for 6 years, and then he said it was okay for me to be born. 6 years, 10 years, 10 years. And we talk a lot about it, but the things that you are doing in today's world simply weren't possible for someone of your intelligence and creativity in the 1950s. I have to tell you, this was not possible. You could not be enabled and empowered by the system that you were living in the 1950s like you can today. So I'm in complete agreement with the notion that this is a very extraordinary period to be born in. And I'm going to talk about the title here of 10 times is easier than 2 times. And I'm going to give you a comparison of 2 mindsets because somebody look at that, well, it's just 5 times, 2 times. And I'm going to show you a difference that 2 times is actually bad for your brain. You should not be thinking in terms of 2 times. It actually does something bad for your brain. And I'm going to show you what 10 times does. That 10 times is actually very, very good for your brain. And I was just estimating here, just what probably the revenues were for this room. Here we got like 220 people, I think, that are in the room, and I would estimate it's in the billions. Well, Dina takes care of one of them, so I know it's more than I know it's more than 1 billion. But what I see is very, very possible that within a period of time, and it would differ for each of you, that let's say the number was 3 billion, the total revenues in the room was 3 billion, that in a short period of time, that 30 billion would be very, very possible for this same room, the people who are here and that. And when I show you how this would happen, you'll see that it's actually very reasonable. Actually, it's not only reasonable, but it's actually the only way you would want to think. So my talk has 4 parts to it. But first of all, before I get into the actual lineup of what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk to you about what is X. When you say 10X or 10 times, what is the X? Because what I've discovered working with entrepreneurs, and by the way, tomorrow is 40 years since I started coaching. So tomorrow... And I'm Catholic, and August 15th is the Feast of the Assumption. I can guarantee you on that August 15th, I had a lot of assumptions, so. And then I had my first bankruptcy, and then I had my bankruptcy that I was divorced in the morning and bankrupt in the afternoon. So there was what Jeff Walker would call testing that I did back in those days. But what I've personally worked with 6,000 entrepreneurs, and they're ambitious people. They're talented, successful, ambitious people. But what I find is that each of them has a unique take on what the future looks like for them, and each of them has a sort of a formula or a unique recipe of really what constitutes success for them as a person, and it's just in their business life, it's their personal life. So I'm just going to give you a list of the sort of things that people, when they talk about increasing by 10 times, these are the things that they would want to increase. And the number one is confidence. Okay, and I'm a great believer that confidence is a capability, and that confidence as a capability can be increased 10 times. And if you increase your confidence by 10 times, the results are just a byproduct of 10 times higher confidence. Where you are today is really a function of your current confidence level, and therefore you could increase it. But then there's things like revenues and profits and wealth, and one of my big ones is free time. Okay, so just to give you a little tip, Babs, would you stand up, because Babs, this is Babs, Babs Smith. And as Joe mentioned this morning, without Babs, I'm just a smart drunk, an out-of-shape smart drunk who is worried about the rent. So that's where I am today. So my life consists of before Babs and after Babs, and I'm really quite clear. I tell her that in the morning, and I tell her before I go to bed at night. And I'm very, very conscious of what Babs did to my life. So free time, and then health, and then fitness, and your overall energy level. These are all 10 times goals. So it's not just one thing. Typically your mind would go to income or it would go to profits, but in fact that all of these are factors that contribute to 10 times. And the people who do 10 times and do it well, by what I mean is they do it in a way that's absolutely good for other people, but they absolutely do it good for themselves, actually cover the, they cover the menu here. And then reputation and capabilities and clients and your customers and the kind of support you have, technology and connections. So as you're thinking about this, you would have 3 or 4 that you would go after right away, and it wouldn't be necessarily, some people, it's not about income. A few days ago, I was with a client who's from Ojai, and he came down to see a intro that we did in Marina Del Rey, and he had come into the program about 13 years ago, and he was making $250,000 personally, and then he was working 300 days to get his $250,000, and then we started our new 10 times program 3 years ago. And I asked him, how have you done? And his income had gone to $2.5 million personally, so he was up 10 times, but he was doing it in 30 days a year. So he had done a double 10 times. He had done a 10 times with income, but he had done, he was working, and so it was actually a 100 times increase. And he's a big art collector, and he likes doing all sorts of things, but he's got it down to 30 days a year, and now he's going for 10 times the top number, the income number, but he wants to get his whole work, the actual work that he has to do, is down to roughly about 10 full days a year. Okay. Okay. Now, you say, well, I wouldn't want to do that, and that's exactly the point. You wouldn't, because that wouldn't be your goals, but those are his goals. And so when we talk about this, what I want you to think about here is that it has to be your goals. So, that 10 times has to work for you. Okay, and that's really the point here, and everybody's unique, and you've got the freedom. Entrepreneurs are the only people on the planet who actually have the freedom of time, the freedom of money, the freedom of relationship, and the freedom of purpose. Four freedoms that you have that other people don't have. Time, you can arrange your time the way you want. There's no upper limit on the amount of money that you can make. You can choose to work with who you want to work with. Both inside your company and outside your company relationship. But the big thing is purpose. So Dave Kekich, and I've been communicating with Dave for a number of years, but today is actually the first time I actually met him. But we were talking, and I was talking to Craig Venter, who's Peter's partner in longevity, and we were talking about the life extension, which I believe my goal is 156 right now and has been for 27 years. So at 70, I'm not even actuarially on the table yet. I haven't even qualified for the actuarial table because I still have 86 years to go. But I said, you can extend, physically, you can extend people's lives, but the question is, do they have any purpose? Do they actually have any purpose? Because a lot of people really don't. Once they finish their work life, they really, really don't have much purpose. So that's going to be the big issue. I think once the purpose drives, people will, they'll do it. And 10 times is a nice purpose to have. And so my goal, I'm 70 and I'm going for 95, so I just put together a 25-year goal. And everybody that I coach is on the 25-year plan. And my goal is that in the next 25 years, I accomplish 10 times more than I accomplished up till 70. Okay? So whatever that was, I accomplished a lot before 70, but it's going to be 10 times more. Okay, so I just wanted you to be clear about that. Now, as far as what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about the mindset. So the mindset has really been talked about a lot here. It starts with just how your brain's looking at your life, looking at the world, looking at the possibilities. Then I'm going to give you a model that shows you the radical difference between 2x and 10x. Then I'm going to show you a method that everybody in this room can do. You can start doing the method that I'm talking about here. You can do that method starting right now. As a matter of fact, you could put together a very good game plan by the time I'm finished here. And then I'm going to give you a map of what the world looks like. And what's happening to the world is that it's going binary. And what I mean is that the world always takes on the structure of the economics of the world. So when the world was industrial, the world looked like a factory. Okay? The world wars, I was born during the Second World War, and after the Second World War, for the next 25 or 30 years, America looked like a factory that was producing war materials. It was big, it was multi-level, it was a big pyramid. GM had 18 levels from the CEO down to the factory floor. And everybody thought that was great. The unions were that way, government was that way, but now we're going digital and we're going network, and now the world is rearranging itself along network lines, so it's very, very different. And I'm going to show you basically that there's an emotion you have to actually get on one side or the other side of the binary. There's sort of a split going down the middle of the world. You can see it reflected in the news every day. They talk about the polarization of society. I'm going to show you what the real polarization of society is. And I can say right now that all of you in this room are on the right side, as opposed to the left side. No, but the thing about it is that there's a way of thinking about the world, and it starts with the mindset, but it's actually an emotion. And your basic path that you're going to create for yourself in the years ahead comes from a particular emotion, and there's a counter emotion, and I'm going to show you what that is. Okay, so let's just talk about the model and the mindset, first of all. First of all, I'm going to show you what 2x looks like, and we've got 3 tools that the brain has that I consider to be tools. And we have a tool called the future, we have a tool called the past, and we have a tool called the present. And these are tools, and these are learned because children, newborn children, do not have a time sense. They learn it. It takes about 2 years and the development of language before children begin to realize that there's a difference between what happens before they go to sleep and what happens after they get up in the morning. They call them dark sleeps. So a lot of kids come up with dark sleeps as nighttime, and short sleeps are naps. But they start to distinguish that there was a before I went to bed last night, and there's something happens, and the brain starts to develop. It's like 3 dimensions. Children do not see 3 dimensions. It takes quite a while before children get a handle on 3-dimensionality. It's in the structure of the brain, but it has to be learned. And everybody learns past, present, and future completely differently. I've never found 2 people in all my coaching who look at past, present, and future in the same way. And the reason is they're made up. They're made up. People make up the future and they make up the past. Okay? People are just as creatively fictional about their past as they are about their future. And so one of the things is it's your property. These 3 tools are your property, and the past, present, future are your property, and you can do anything with them that you can get away with. Okay, so here's the way 2x works, and I've seen this over and over again, that if you do 2x, you start with the present, you start where you are right now, and you got a 2x goal, but you don't go to the future, you actually go to the past. You actually go to the past. And the reason is because we're smart rats. Humans are smart rats, and they don't like working. And so they say, I'm going to do 2x, and I wonder if I can pull it off without changing anything. So they go back and they do an inventory of the past of all the things that they don't want to change to get to 2x. Okay, and how many of you, if you rearranged a few things, you could probably go 2x. How many of you? And they would be known. You would know right now how you could go to 2x. Would you know? You could double. You would probably know the means would be there. It's a tightening up on the systems, a little smarter, a little better time management. You would know how to get to 2x. And so it's not very exciting. 2x is, how many of you 2x really isn't that exciting? It's just not that exciting. And therein lies the issue. 2x is not exciting. It's not exciting for you. And if you tell somebody about it, it's not exciting to them. So there's no new energy in the system. So what happens then is that you actually start in the present and you circle back and you try to pull as much of the past as you possibly can into the future. Okay? And the past negotiates with you about your future. How many of you have noticed that the past is union organized? Yeah. And not only are they unionized, but they drink. They're drinking partners, all the past. No, we're not going to do that. No. Have a drink. And everything else. And that's one of the biggest things I've noticed is just this negotiating with the past, that most people, when they come up with a goal, they have to go back and first justify it to their past. They have to justify it to their past, okay? And that, you can see the drag immediately on this goal. Now, I'm going to show you the other one. So this is the other one. So with 2x, you start with the present, trying to change as little of the past as possible. Not exciting. It doesn't cause any inspiration, doesn't cause any electricity. Okay, it doesn't cause any real movement that's going to get a lot of people interested in what you're doing. That's why, when I sit there and, let's see, Peter, what's he going to do? First of all, he's going to take 1 billion people and make them literate in 18 months, and then he's going to put his name on it, asteroid Demontis. It's worth 5 trillion, all right? I got that one, and then you go down the list. These are big. How many of you are excited just sitting there, just sitting there listening to it? That's the secret of it. It's the excitement. The excitement. If there's no excitement, there's no electricity. If there's no electricity, there's no movement. You have to have the excitement. So the big thing is that you got to go 10 times or nothing moves. You got to go 10 times. So with the 10 times, it works just the opposite. You don't start with the present, you actually start with the future. And with the future, you come back and you grab the present. You come back and you loop the present like that, okay? And you leave the past in another category. I'm going to tell you why the past is valuable, because a lot of people say the past is not valuable. I don't think about the past. A lot of entrepreneurs, they say, yeah, no, I never think about the past. And I said, well, that's too bad, because there's a lot of useful stuff in the past that would be useful for the future. And so don't knock the past. I'm not knocking the past here. I'm not saying bad things about it. I'm simply saying that you got to start with the future as the lead. And here's the deal. The past has to justify itself to the future. The past has to justify itself. The only reason why any of your past gets to come along is because it has a value for the future. So I've got 70 years with the past, and I've got a lot of valuable stuff back there. I got a lot of stuff there, and I'm constantly going back to past experience and saying, what did I learn there that's really valuable? Okay, so here's how it works. If with 10 times you start with the future, freeing your present as much as necessary from the past. You got to free it up, okay? And that requires some shifts. That requires, that's why Daniel, a lot of the stuff he does, you got to have a brain that can do this, because a lot of the brain, if it's a damaged brain, it's responding to damage that happened in the past. Okay, that's a map of your past. When you get a bad brain scan, it's a map of the past. I was knocked out twice in a football game when I was 18 years old, and the damage was still sitting there on my brain. You could see the dark section on my brain, And in those days, they said, "You okay?" Yeah, okay, get back in there. You get back in there. Yeah, it was good. I got knocked out. I sat on the bench for about 5 minutes and got back in. First play, I got knocked out again. Guy said, "Why don't you sit this one out?" The coach said, "Why don't you sit it out?" But I was back on the field next week, because that's what men do. I was a man. Okay. So that's the model, okay? So that's the model. And so that's the mindset. So here's the model. So I'm going to put the two of them together. And the two of them are side by side, and you can see the radical difference just visually, okay? And this is what it looks like in the 2 times you're trying to pull the past into the future. And in the 10 times, the present is being pulled into the future, and the past, large parts of the past being discarded. How many of you, this actually, when you're doing things well, this is what you do, and when you get really bogged down, you're doing the left-hand side? Yeah, that's what happens. See, this happens with all 7 billion people, and nobody's 100% with this, and nobody's 100% in any area of their life. Some people are really advanced in one part of their life, but they're not advanced in other parts of their life. There's parts of their life where the future is really doing the work, but in other parts of their life, the past is giving the orders. It creates tremendous tension. All right, now, how many of you would say that this is probably harder? This is harder, and this is easier. So now I'm going to talk about harder and easier, and all things considered, how many of you prefer easier over harder? Yeah, and that's really the thing. Now, you have the brain that can do this, and you've got the experience that can do this, but you got to get the distinctions right. You got to get the circuitry right on this, and it has to do with what you do with past, present, and future. You got to get them right. And generally speaking, if your child, if you're thinking about your children, and they've spent 20 years in the educational system, and that's usually the case now, 4 years old to 24 years old. They have been almost 99% taught by people who would not even believe in 2 times. They would not even believe that. They would believe, at a much worse thing. They would go for cost of living. You know, cost of living, wow! I mean, that's what union fights are over, cost of living. I mean, that's not very inspiring. Yeah, so it's a union. So you got to have the right teachers. That's why you come to Genius Network, and I just had a wonderful 4 days in Rancho Mirage with JJ and Camper and their Mindshare, you know, I mean, if you said that in the 1950s, I don't know really what that would all be about. But the whole thing of bringing together people who are future-oriented and have an impact. I mean, you just being in this room for 2 days, your brain will change. Chemically, your brain will change by being in this room for 2 days. And Joe is just a master bringing together people who can provide shifts. They provide, you know, they almost sometimes, you know, I'm sitting here and I'm watching a 10-minute talk and I'm whack! I just get this like, and all of a sudden there's this real shift, and you never go back to the way you were before the shift. So this is the educational system that really, really works. But if you take everybody who does that and has that kind of impact and shift, they do the same thing. They free you from the past. There's this freeing up, and you get this real movement toward the future. And remember, past, present, future, they're yours. You make them up. You got to choose what you want to feed them. You know, you got to be careful what you feed those time sense. Okay, so I'm going to talk about harder and easier. So now I'm going to talk about the method. So I'm going to talk about 10 times easier and 2 times harder. And I'm going to talk about 10 times easier because 10 times easier is based on energy. Okay? How many of you would know in any situation whether this was energizing or this was stuff? How many of you know the difference between energy and stuff? Energy and stuff. Okay? Energy makes you feel good and stuff makes you feel bad. Okay, that's good. That's good. So I'm going to put energy and stuff on. Here's what energy, first of all, I'll start with stuff. Stuff is activities that are devoid of energy. How many of you right now know that you're doing activities that are devoid of energy? Okay? And how many of you could make a list of activities that are devoid of energy? How many of you could make a list of people who are devoid of energy in your life? Situations that are devoid of energy. Okay? Activities that your company has gotten involved in, situations that that are devoid of energy. Okay, that's stuff. Okay, everybody got stuff? Okay. Energy is activities that are free from stuff. Activities are free from stuff. What's it feel like when you're freed up from stuff? Yeah. Feels like bulletproof coffee. The last thing I did before I came on stage was make sure you have a bulletproof coffee before you get up on stage. That and my Adderall. I love Adderall. Now, he doesn't recommend. He said, but you might want to try this. You know what I realized when I came back? It took me 6 weeks to take the first one because I don't know if I want to do this. And I took it, and it was just before our workshop. And I took it, and I walked in, and I sat down. I introduced the group, and then I sat down, and all at once, it was almost like a physical, it was like going bang, like that, and the whole world went quiet. And I realized that for 66 years, I had lived in a world of noise. And this is the first time my life was quiet. And it's been quiet for 4 years. And these have been the 4 best years of my life. So, but I got the scan, shitty scan. Yeah, it is better. I saw him a year later, and he was amazed. You were amazed, weren't you, how much, it was like a lit up city a year later. It was really good. And I got a lot of confidence out of it, too. So energy and stuff. Okay, now think of the world. I mean, think of Washington right now. You know what Washington is? It is an entire organization and ecosystem that's completely devoid of energy. It's just all stuff. It's just all stuff. You know, and there's so many of these large organizations, these large systems that were considered just the normal part of life now that are just stuff. And the reason is they don't have the ability to have a future. They don't have a future. Everything has to be justified on the basis of the past. Okay? And you can just see it drains the energy. And you can see what happens to public officials. You know, they come in, they're full of vim and vigor, and they're very, very exciting. You can just see them, the energy goes out of them. They get sucked in. So the big thing here is this is the method that I'm going to talk to you about right now. So we're going to talk about that the method for going 10 times consists of eliminating stuff. So how many of you would have a hit list right off the bat of stuff that you can do? And so I'm going to just show you in coach, because we coach a lot of people and they all come through, but this is sort of the kind of things that people go after. And if you wanted to, on your sheet of paper, I know this is on the sheet of paper, you can just write down everything that others do better, everything that drains energy, relationships that go nowhere. And what I'd like you to do with each of those three things, if you see them on the sheet of paper, it's in our little folder on the right-hand side, down at the bottom. So this is a little strategic coach diagram that we have there. But just write down below each of those words that I have up there, everything that others do better, everything that drains energy, relationships that go nowhere, and just write down a word, a name or a word of something that would be on that list. And I'd like you to have one under each of them. Just write that down. You know, for example, everything that others do better. So the real impact that I have on entrepreneurs in the program is I get them to do far, far, far less. They come in and they're doing 20 different things. I say, you're not good at 20 different things. Okay? You're good at 3 things. You're good at 3 things. So I do 3 things. I do what I'm doing right now. I coach my workshops and I come up with new ideas. And I come up with new diagrams. And in the course of my work year, 95% of my time is made up of those 3 activities. I got a circle. Okay? And I'm not allowed to go outside that circle by my team. Okay, if Dan goes out and he goes, if I step outside of my circle, if Dan tries to say anything about the company that doesn't relate to giving a public performance or coaching or creating new material, he's out of bounds. He's out of bounds. And Babs enforces it. She enforces it. And I teach everybody to do that because I came from the entertainment industry. In the entertainment industry, you want the entertainer to entertain. You don't want the entertainer selling tickets. You don't want the entertainer moving furniture backstage. Frank Sinatra does not move pianos. I made a living before he died on that one. He just plays. He just entertains. Every one of you in this room is an entertainer, and you've got a song to sing and an audience to sing to, and anytime you're not singing your song to your audience, it's probably stuff. Probably stuff. Does that make sense? I find entertainment's really interesting because it's all about energy. Entertainment, the whole entertainment industry is just pure energy. If you want to know a model of the future, it's the entertainment industry. And that includes sports. Everything that drains energy. Well, what drains energy? Everybody's got a list, and it's different for everybody. Okay? If I'm not front stage or I'm not doing things front stage, it's probably stuff for me. I'm a front stage guy. Okay? How many of you in this room are kind of front stage people, using the theater term? You shouldn't be backstage. Okay? You're backstage to prepare for it. And it's really, really different. And the thing is, you can't be disrespectful about what other people find energizing because everybody's wired. Babs and I have a personal bookkeeper who twice a week. She comes in, she handles all of our bills and everything, and had her for 25 years. And from my perspective, she's done exactly the same thing every day, 2 days a week for 25 years. So I went in one day, her name is Mary Beth, and I said, Mary Beth, do you like this work? And she said, Dan, from one day to the next, you never know what's going to happen. You see, and I wasn't seeing it. So we can't make judgments about other people. Everybody's nervous system is constructed differently, and what they find stimulating and everything else is different. The only thing is you want to get them inside their circle. So we do this with all of our team. We have 120 staff, and every one of them, the moment they start the company, we start this process of getting their circles smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until there's just 3 of them. And we've got 65 people who've been with us more than 10 years, because going to work every day and just being energized is actually a good way to spend your life. Okay, we try to keep them away from stuff. And then relationships that go nowhere. That would be both business and how many of you right now have a relationship that's going nowhere? Okay, it's a stuff relationship. It's not going anywhere. Okay, so write down the name. All progress starts by telling the truth. Bill W. All progress starts by telling the truth. You have to tell the truth. Okay, and the writing hand is connected directly to your brain. 40% of the brain the hand that you write with is direct. 40% of the brain is connected directly to that hand. You know, opposable thumb. Human brain takes the opposable thumb really seriously, because the opposable thumb basically was one of the big things that created the human brain. Okay, so that's it. Now we're going to go to the other side, increase energy. Okay. I start with the stuff because it's annoying and most people can get to it right away. Now, so here's the energy side of it. Everything that you permanently love, everything that produces growth, and everything that grows confidence, okay? So I have a big thing that I have a question. And Dean Jackson here, Dean and I had a great conversation one night. And I said, Dean, what is the single activity or focus that would absolutely keep you fascinated and motivated for the rest of your life? Okay, fascinated and motivated and it took him about, 2 minutes? 2 minutes, and wham, like that. And Dean, big difference since we did that? Amen. Amen. Yeah, I got him on Adderall too. Yeah, so the big thing is there's a something that is just eternally fascinating. How many of you, when you saw a number of the speakers up here, you knew they were in their sweet zone about what fascinates and motivated most of them? I mean, Peter, you're just the role model. You're the poster child for being in the zone of something that just permanently fascinates and motivates you for the rest of your life. Joe, if it moves, he'll talk to it. I mean, Joe would call Putin if he thought it was a good interview. No, he's a connector. Joe cannot help not connecting. I mean, it's just fascinating and motivating to him. Scans, I mean, it's more than the scans, Daniel. There's something in there that just totally fascinates and motivates you. You know, and you can't get enough of it. And when you're 20, 30, 40 years older, it'll still fascinate and motivate. So if you can get the person just locked into that, you can build everything else around it. And it's a series of questions. I had this wonderful interview with Jeff when he first came into the program about what it was like to do his first launch where he was charging, and he got $1,300 back. And he was just sitting there in a state of awe for a couple of days simply because, first of all, it was equal to their disposable income as a couple for that year. And then, but just where the possibilities. And I think, the book, I read the book, and the book reflects that fascination and motivation with that process. Okay, so that's what really prompted you to become an entrepreneur. It was this point of fascination and motivation that is permanent, right at the center. But a lot of entrepreneurs get off track. And then they get they get tied up with the rewards of doing this activity, and then their life gets very, very complicated, and they retire and whatever. So there's this, this whole thing. So do this, okay? So you get this. Every 3 months, what we want you to do is eliminate 3 stuffs, and we want you to increase 3 energies. Okay, so you have stuff, 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 energy, energy. How many of you, every 3 months, you could eliminate 3 areas of stuff, big, small, medium in your life, and you could increase 3 areas of energy? No. And go after the small stuff first because it gives you a kick of energy. When you eliminate stuff, you get a hit of energy. When you add energy, you get a double hit of energy. Okay, so it's really, really great. And then you get those 3. And then what we do is this is what it looks like. 36, over 36 months, you would eliminate 36 areas of stuff, and you would increase 36 areas of energy. Okay, how many of you that would probably, I mean, can you imagine yourself if you got rid of 36 things that are stuff and added 36 things of energy? What do you think it would do to you? What do you think you would be like to other people? The ones you hadn't eliminated. But you would have attracted a lot of people in new life because I believe all of life is based on radio frequencies. You send out a certain energy frequency and other people pick up on it. Okay, so that's that. So this is what it looks like. Okay, so I switched it here. So this is the energy going up and the stuff going down, and this is life. You could do this for the rest of your life, and every year, and then it starts to compound. You know, it isn't like you go doom, doom, doom. You start to compound. It starts to become exponential. This is where you can actually experience what Peter talks about. Exponential experience is getting rid of the stuff and adding energy, and it takes you right into things that allow you to do things faster, easier, cheaper, all the technologies and everything. This is the proper training, the emotional, psychological training for getting in tune with the technological age. All Uber is they got rid of all the stuff and added all the energy. Airbnb, they just get rid of all the stuff and add the energy. All Amazon, I mean, they said, Dan, they always call Barnes & Noble never called me Dan. Dan, you know, I get so excited and I order and they said, Dan, you already ordered this one. I love that Dan. How many of you, oh yeah, I love that Dan. Barnes & Noble, Borders, no Dan. Borders was stuff, they're gone. So, no, I mean, I just want you to see this on the big level. Okay, so let's go to the big level. I'm just going to wrap up here. So this is the math. Okay, I'm going to talk to you about scarcity because Peter talks a lot about abundance, but I want to talk about scarcity first. And scarcity starts with an emotion. Okay? Okay, so I got a 15-minute grace period here when I'm... We got an agreement, Joe and I, you know. Okay. Okay, so here's it. All stuff, all loss of energy in your life starts with envy. Envy is the emotion that kills energy. Okay, envy, okay. And envy is looking at what someone else has and wanting them not to have it. That's what envy is. And it's the energy killer, any kind of envy. And envy, so it's stuff. Envy is about stuff. What are people envious about? They're envious about stuff. You got more stuff than I got. I don't want you to have that. Okay. All right. And envy leads to guilt because you got more stuff than other people, so you're guilty. So on the one hand, you're envious, and on the other hand, you're guilty. Okay, you're guilty, and so you get caught between these two emotions. Both these are all energy killers. Okay, and then there's blame, because you got to blame somebody why the world is structured such a way that some people have a lot of stuff and other people don't have enough stuff. So now you got 3 things going. Can you see how this really, really kills energy? And this is how all scarcity, it's a set of emotions that become a system. That's how scarcity, scarcity, there's more than enough for everything to go around, But the energy systems that people, or the devoid stuff systems that people prevent there actually being any abundance. And what that leads to is a sense of massive unfairness. I mean, I went to college, I go back to college reunions, and it's about the unfairness of the world. It's about the unfairness of the world. Living in America, talk to the Uber drivers, they're all immigrants, they love this place. Their solution is send all the unhappy Americans somewhere they came from. So unfairness, and then depletion, the planet is being depleted. Okay, there isn't enough to go around. In 1800, we crossed 1 billion, now we have 7 billion. Average incomes are up 17 times, lifespan is up 42 years. All the great slides that Peter had this morning, there's just massive amounts, and the reason is because it comes out of human imagination and imagining an infinite future, and then having more and more energy in your life. And then the other one is the zero sum. If you have something, that means I don't have it. If this person over here has it, it's only at the cost of someone. These are killer thoughts. These are killer thoughts. They destroy energy. They destroy any possibility of creativity, okay? So I call this the scarcity system, and it's a stuff system. The whole thing's based on stuff. The whole thing's All right, now that was quick. I had to get through that quickly. And then I go to the abundance spiral. Starts with gratitude. Gratitude is the single most powerful energy-producing emotion on the planet. Abundance is connected, or gratitude is connected to another word which we use interchangeably, which is called appreciation, which is interesting because it has both a psychological meaning, but it has an economic meaning. So stocks appreciate, land appreciates. So appreciation means growth. And I say that every time you're grateful, you appreciate the value of something. You appreciate the value of that person, but you appreciate who you are because you're grateful. So if you want to know how to enter and continually grow within the world of abundance, you have to be grateful for everything, okay? And you'll never run out of new things to be grateful for. And people can tell that you're grateful, and people love being around people who are grateful, and they hate being around people who are envious. Okay, so gratitude leads to is energy, and it leads to creativity. Steve Jobs, they said, Steve Jobs, what is creativity? He says, it's putting things together. People who put a lot of things together are really creative, You only put things together that you love and you appreciate. Creativity, you only put things together that you really like, and creativity leads to cooperation, which is really what capitalism is. F.A. Hayek said that capitalism is an ever-expanding system of increased cooperation among strangers. Big thing there is strangers. So when I was in, and the thing that really gets me about this is the ATM. I grew up in slow times, so ATMs are really, really exciting to me. And we were in Vienna. We were at the soccer hotel, very famous for the soccer tour. And I came down to the concierge and I said, is there an ATM here? Of course, he knew what I meant. He says, yes, you come out the front, walk down 2 blocks till you get to McDonald's, cross the street, and the ATM is right between Starbucks and the Apple store. I go there, they ask you, language, okay, they ask you currency, you put in your card, millions and millions of strangers cooperating with each other. I get that. And Babs is there. I turn to her and I say, what a world. What a world. I love it. I love it. This is massive cooperation among strangers. Most of the world still, you can only have cooperation among friends and family. Okay, finally, real quick, opportunity. Opportunity, when you get this, you get massive opportunity, which leads to ingenuity, which leads to Peter's favorite subject, exponentials. And this is the energy system. So what you have to do now is that you have to put a barrier, the abundance barrier, between these two systems okay? And what you have to do is continually surround yourself with people who are energy people, which I call the abundance neighborhood, which goes like this, goes like this. And this is what this is. This is what Joe is putting. He's putting together abundance. This is what Peter does with Abundance 360. We put together an abundance neighborhood. So this is my whole take on how going from the simple thing of getting past, present, and future right in your mind, and then understanding that the mechanism for growing the future is to actually increase the amount of energy in your life, reduce the amount of stuff. You end up in a neighborhood like this, and it's a good world.
We've been around a boatload of marketers. I think there's so many creative people in the marketing space, so many scoundrels, and some of them are the same people. So what have you learned from observing people in terms of qualities and characteristics related to integrity?
What's the quote? You can fool all of the people some of the time, and some of the people all of the time. Mm-hmm. But what I have learned is if you want to do anything of significance or size, integrity is unequivocal and it's binary. That the moment that you color outside those lines, and it might even be something as simple as a campaign that overpromises and underdelivers. And we operate in a world where, you might only be one something away. And is that accurate? Maybe. Is it true? Not in the definition I would use. And I think that even going through our equity rounds, it's something that as a marketer I wouldn't anticipate was important, but to private equity it was. That all of a sudden when we started unpacking campaigns, if it was based on income claims or if it was based on things that were not steeped in integrity, they viewed that as a very significant liability, even if it was converting in the short term. So I would say that the integrity, the character, and what the brand stands for, unbelievably important. And it's something that Kajabi has been a disproportionate beneficiary of for a very long time. Even sometimes to our detriment in our enterprise value. One of the things we always said at Kajabi was, if you ever lock in a price on our platform, you'll have it forever. So we have people today that were founders that joined in 2015 when we redesigned the platform. They have an account today at $97 a month that would cost you probably $900 a month. So, by a factor of 1/10 of what it would cost you to buy it today, we've never changed their price. We even have some accounts on that founders plan that have cost us as much as, I think the most expensive one we ever had was a gentleman who taught martial arts, and his video hosting bill was almost $22,000 a year. And he was paying us $1,000 a year. We still didn't change his price because it was a matter of integrity. Like, well, we said it might not have been smart at the time, but, can't take it back. So I think that, integrity is always who you are when nobody's looking. And for us, standing by that has been something that has been extremely valuable for us, and the market has supported us because of it.
That's great.
In the spirit of I love marketing, and to bring it back out of all the personal stuff, I'm just curious if you had a fundamental shift or perspective change about marketing in your time off, and what that's going to look like stepping back into what you're about to start marketing.
Yeah, I acquired the domain hotseat.com, and I really like dialogues versus monologues. And the more that you can create dialogue and interactive marketing, the better. It doesn't require you to have as big of a list, tons of people. It just needs to be bonding at a deeper level. So the more that I can connect deeper with myself, the more that I can realize people just want to bond and connect. The event we just did at Genius Network, I probably had 20 people come up to me throughout the 2.5 days, and they said this was the best event that I had ever attended in my life. And these were people that run events. And this was a business conference, but it was a lot about just bonding with people. And I realized, some people right now, they just need to process and talk, including me. We're going through some crazy ass times in the world. And, it's pursuit and money and selling and all that are obviously important in order to, take what it is that you do for a living, a career, and get it out to people. And at the, people do business with people that they like. And so part of it is, people don't refund a relationship. And the more that you can develop deeper relationships, the better. So that's, if there's, I don't know if that's a grand idea, but it's just a deepening of how I think about things and how I want to pursue things in the future. Does that make sense?
I think that's pretty profound. It's about connection, is what I'm hearing.
Yes. Totally about connection.
More,
it's all about connection.
There's something else. There's something else important about hot seat. It is the ultimate evergreen, current, cutting edge of the moment thing that you can do. When you are on the hot seat, the implication is you're getting attention. Your attention is on something. Everybody else's attention is on something in this moment to solve the most pressing, largest, biggest opportunity that you've got with the most cutting edge available tools today. When we were having hot seats in 1997, we were talking about mailing sequential direct mail packages to people after getting ads from trade publications. That's the kind of, state of the art. But then somewhere around 1997, we started working email and websites into these things. And now it became a whole nother world. But hot seat is not gonna get old. Hot seat is something that is evergreen. It's going to grow. It's at the front of the thing. And that all comes with having a great context. When you've got a context, like everything you can do to prepare yourself to be a valuable hot seat participant as a contributor, as somebody helping solve somebody's hot seat problem, is to be a current and past practitioner of, the most effective marketing for generations. That's why we were doing, fax marketing and using business reply mail postcards and things that were the cutting edge at the time, but are not needed now. But it's that thinking and having that the reference and experiences of that you bring to what's going on in the current, in the now.
And what I'll do, Dean, when we figure out exactly how to roll that thing out, me and Dean will do some hot seats with people that have a business problem or a challenge, and we will, because I can bring some of the top talent on the planet and I envision bringing world experts and throw a problem out there and say, okay, let's solve it right now.
Mm-hmm.
But that's on the exploratory board right now. So Thank you.
Okay, I hope you found that video awesome and useful. So if you want to get a free copy of my book, I want you to click here. And if you want to watch some more videos that'll be useful and awesome, click here. Go ahead. They're over here. Do it now. Come on. Thank you. Watch them.